History may wear a crown, but behind those glittering jewels lies a world of shocking secrets, where kings were duped, queens defied expectations, and dynasties rose and fell on whispers of betrayal. Forget fairy tales. These are the real stories of royal beds left cold, thrones nearly lost, and heirs who might have had the wrong father entirely. From the back chambers of Spanish castles to the opera boxes of Sweden and the revolution-soaked streets of France, today we're peeling back the velvet curtains on some of the most jaw-dropping royal scandals you've probably never heard of, but won't soon forget. We begin in 15th century Castile, where King Enrique IV, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and burdened with the unfortunate nickname, the Impotent, found himself married to not one, but two princesses who remained disturbingly unpregnant. His first wife, Blanca of Navarre, remained untouched for over a decade. The court, ever helpful, even posted scribes outside the royal bedchamber to confirm consummation. Their pens stayed dry. Enrique blamed witchcraft for his dysfunction and had his marriage annulled, but it was his second queen, the alluring Juana of Portugal, who truly rocked the throne. With a concoction of bull's testicles and porcupine quills meant to spark desire, Enrique tried to defy nature. But even with the help of a pioneering Jewish physician and an experimental method resembling early artificial insemination, success was questionable. Juana gave birth to a daughter who looked suspiciously like the queen's handsome courtier, Beltrán de la Cueva. Court whispers branded the girl La Beltraneja. When Juana later bore two more sons by a bishop's nephew, the scandal reached a boiling point. Rebellion erupted, the throne tottered, and it would be Enrique's formidable half-sister Isabella, not Juana, who would rule Castile and eventually unite Spain with Ferdinand of Aragon, setting the stage for a global empire. Let's turn our gaze to 15th century England, an age when thrones were won with steel and secrets. The year was 1442. At Rouen in Normandy, Cecily Neville, Duchess of York, gave birth to a boy named Edward. Years later, he would rise to become King Edward IV, founder of the Yorkist dynasty. But there's a shadow that still hangs over his cradle, a question that rocked the foundations of the English monarchy. Cecily was a woman of formidable presence, known to courtiers as Proud Cis. Her husband, Richard, Duke of York, was far from her side at the time Edward was conceived, off fighting the 100 Years' War in France. This inconvenient timeline led to centuries of speculation. If Richard wasn't there, then who was? Rumours took root and spread like ivy. Had Cecily found comfort in the arms of a common archer? Had the future king been born of a man not even noble? Physically, Edward didn't help his own case. While Richard and Cecily's other children were short and dark-haired, Edward was strikingly tall, over 6 feet, and golden-haired, a shimmering anomaly. To some, he looked more like a Norse god than a York. And while he would ultimately claim the throne, not by primogeniture but by the sword, the whisper of illegitimacy never left him. Edward's own brother, George, Duke of Clarence, would later turn against him and accuse him of being a bastard, hoping to take the crown for himself. The price for such ambition? A traitor's death. George was famously drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine, a Shakespearean end for a man steeped in drama. But the greatest twist came after Edward's death. His two young sons, Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury, remembered as the princes in the Tower, disappeared under the watch of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Richard swiftly declared the boys illegitimate and claimed the throne for himself as Richard III. This treacherous act paved the way for a new claimant, Henry Tudor, a distant relative with a paper-thin claim and a well-honed sword. He defeated Richard at the Battle of Bosworth, married Edward IV's daughter Elizabeth of York, and founded the Tudor dynasty. But here's the rub. If Edward IV had no royal blood, then what does that say about the Tudors, the Stuarts, even the Windsors? The very line that produced Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and every monarch down to Charles III may have sprouted from a royal fiction, a tale spun by the greatest dramatists history ever knew. Now drift north to chilly 18th century Sweden, where royal scandal took a much colder form. Quite literally, Crown Prince Gustav III was a man of flamboyant flair, passionate about theatre, elegance and the arts. His bride, Sophia Magdalena of Denmark, could not have been more different, devout, timid and raised under a strict Lutheran code. From the very beginning, the marriage was frosty. After 3 years, gossip spread like wildfire. The royal marriage remained unconsummated, and Sophia, still a virgin, became the target of whispers. Even foreign courts snickered. One Danish courtier quipped that she was as happy as any woman married 3 years and still a virgin. Gustav, it was said, found far more pleasure in the company of men than his own wife. But pressure mounted. Sweden needed an heir. A revolution loomed. A monarch without a child was vulnerable, and Gustav knew it. In a move that seems almost comical today, he turned to his trusted friend, Count Adolf Friedrich Munk, not just for advice, but for active assistance. Depending on the version of the tale you believe, Munk either coached the royal couple from behind a curtain, or physically intervened to help seal the royal deal. 9 months later, a baby was born. Prince Gustav Adolf entered the world, and the nation exhaled. But courtiers couldn't help but note how much the child resembled Count Munk. He was even gifted a diamond ring by the Queen and promoted swiftly by the King. Suspicious much. Years later, that child, King Gustav IV Adolf, would lose Finland in a disastrous war with Russia. The people were furious. The royal family, once proud and secure, was cast aside. The Swedes had had enough of royal uncertainty and quietly replaced their dynasty altogether. Enter Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, a French general plucked from Napoleon's inner circle. He became Karl XIV Johann, founder of a completely new royal house. The Bernadottes still sit on the Swedish throne today, descendants not of ancient Nordic kings, but of a revolutionary soldier from France. And now, to France, a land of revolutions and resurrections, where one name towers above all others: Napoleon. But what if the last great Bonaparte wasn't one at all? Napoleon Bonaparte arranged a strategic marriage between his stepdaughter, Hortense de Beauharnais, and his awkward younger brother Louis. The emperor hoped to create a new line of little Bonapartes, molded in his image. But Hortense had ideas of her own. Though she performed her royal duty, she kept her heart and affections elsewhere. Her passionate affair with the dashing Charles de Foucauld raised more than eyebrows. Rumors swirled that her children, especially the charming Louis Napoleon, may not have been sired by her husband at all. After the empire collapsed, Hortense lived in luxury in Switzerland, while her Bonaparte sons grew up in exile. The line seemed broken, until France, gripped by political upheaval once more in 1848, turned back to the legend of Napoleon. The people elected Louis Napoleon, the nephew of the emperor, as president. But he didn't stop there. He staged a coup, tore up the constitution, and crowned himself Emperor Napoleon III. His reign was long, modernizing, and filled with grandeur, but ultimately ended in disaster. Defeated by Prussia, captured in battle and exiled, his fall marked the final nail in the coffin for France's imperial dream. And as for Louis Napoleon's bloodline, perhaps Bonaparte in name, but not in blood. What binds these tales together, English wars, Swedish whispers, French affairs, is the same fragile thread: legitimacy. In palaces and castles, in bedchambers and battlefields, the question of who fathered whom became a matter not just of gossip, but of power, war, and nationhood. Edward IV may have been the son of an archer. Gustav IV Adolf might have owed his crown to a courtier's lesson. Napoleon III could have been the heir to a secret love affair. But here's the truth no royal family ever wants to admit. Sometimes the crown doesn't go to the rightful heir. It goes to the one who looks the part, the one with the will, the army, or the story that convinces a kingdom. Legitimacy, in the end, is a tale we choose to believe. And in the world of monarchs, that tale is often stranger than fiction.